everybody? Welcome back to the Enchanted Inkwell. I'm Michael.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Blake.
Welcome back to our post-extended break, our post-World Series episode. First post-World Series 2024 episode. Congratulations to Blake and his LA Dodgers. Proud of all the work you put in.
I didn't do a single thing, but I do enjoy rooting for my team. And so, yeah, that was a fun series. I mean, it's great for baseball, right? Two absolutely like classic teams going at it. The two teams that have faced in the World Series the most. So,
Oh, have they really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Two truly historic teams. Like
Right.
there are all kinds of really cool facts, like the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam was supposedly, I don't know about the actual verifiability of this, was supposedly at the same time, 8:37 p.m. as the Kirk Gibson Game 1 home run when they won in 88.
Oh,
Wait.
interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, the history of baseball, it's kind of fun. But, I mean, two absolutely, you know,
Historic
franchises,
franchises, for sure.
right.
Welcome to the Enchanted Baseball Diamond with Blake and Mike.
That's about the extent of my knowledge. I don't really follow
Truly,
baseball.
yeah.
So we have not debriefed on Seattle yet.
Right, because of varying plagues and also trip recovery.
Oh, yeah, it's just been
hectic,
for both
our
of us,
schedules.
right?
Yeah.
It's just been, okay, like, I'm sick, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm tired, I'm sick, World Series. I got to watch at least one of these games, you know? So it's been life.
I came home, my husband was sick. I got sick. My husband got sick again. And it was like just germs and planes and exhaustion and travel and Seattle and yeah. And it's just that time of year too when everybody like starts getting sick. Everybody just wash your hands.
It's October.
Cover
It's
your mouth
because
when you
everybody
cough.
gets far more busy. Remember we talked about this, like the
Truly.
October schedule. Like there's
Truly.
just so many more things to do.
Yeah. So Seattle, DLC Seattle. Let's take a run at that.
Yeah, brief recap on that, right? Went Friday, we did our early registration. That went swimmingly, very well. I was very impressed with how that one went. And then
Shout out to InfoPoint.
absolutely, yeah. Then, so for Friday, for the most part, I didn't have any specific plans other than the fact that I wanted to do Pack Rush, right? Like this is the true joy that I get in the game at this point in time is Pack Rush. I thoroughly enjoy it. Like it's what I want to do. I need some set 5 cards still, right? I want prize wall tickets. Pack Rush was we talked about different potential strategies of how to do this and that, and I was like, no, you just got to go in and you just got to play. Like you play whoever you play against and you do it. And so that went pretty well. I think I had a win rate of 70% plus.
Nice.
For the 14 or 15 that I was able to get in, because I didn't end up grinding super hard, but I did have a good time, so I just kind of kept doing it. I'd say the only other thing about the Pack Rush at Seattle that was sort of, I don't know, fun, intriguing, interesting, intimidating maybe, is we've talked about how I was very stickler for, you know, just sleeve upside down.
Yeah.
Don't
when
damage
we
the
played
Yeah,
together.
I've always been like, let's protect the cards. Let's just. In Seattle, I decided to throw caution to the wind to truly embrace that which is Pack Rush.
A madman.
And I just went straight riffle shuffle for everything.
A madman.
Opponents just were not having it in this. They were all very respectful and wonderful about it, but they were definitely like, what's going on over there, man? Right? Like, so that was, and then, you know, just a quick recap on it. I got a foil Clarabelle, a foil Naveen, and my chase Snow White Enchanted on one of my last ones. And yes, I did riffle shuffle all of those as I played.
Are you going to try to get it graded now? See if the riffle shuffle affected the grading?
Oh,
Specifically speaking, I actually I looked at it briefly after the match. I haven't really unpacked from Seattle yet with being sick and busy. It looked pretty good, actually. So I actually might, which would only do worse things for me, right? Because now it's like, okay, send it in, get it graded, get a 10 back and be like, riffle shuffle all day, baby.
I have very strong feelings about the grading process and what happens when you allow humans to look at things and determine arbitrary values.
Specifically speaking, that's why I will only use tag.
We're not getting paid. Should we
Sponsored
bleep
by
it?
Tag.
Yeah, we can bleep that out. I'm fine with that. But
Yeah.
I love their slabs. I love their presentation. And I love the fact that it is all computer oriented, right?
I'm a huge fan. We've had a friend get tag slabs back, and from beginning to end, it seems super cool.
Yeah. Oh, specifically speaking, so this actually kind of leads into Seattle.
Sure.
So I had one of those weird experiences where I signed up for basically everything, right? Tried to get the lotto, all the meet and greets, everything that I possibly could. The only lotto I won was the Steve Warner meet and greet, which was fantastic because we've met Ryan Miller. Always enjoy my interactions with him, specifically
sweetie.
speaking. So, like, not downplaying that at all, but it was really nice for me to be able to meet Steve as well.
Is it because the height disparity is a little bit better?
No,
Crane your
more comfortable?
necklace.
it's the collector in me.
Oh, okay. Fair
Right?
enough.
Like, I've met one, right? And
got it.
Ryan Miller's in his basement. He was like, I've got to get the full set.
In case you have not seen Ryan Miller recently, we will check.
Ryan, I'm going to need you to tweet.
No, he's perfectly fine. But I was able to meet, and that ended up being, this has nothing to do with what I like the entire like, whoa, just to try and go over those experiences. But I was able to meet Steve Warner, which was fantastic.
Cool.
I got him to sign my Tinkerbell playmat.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, this is awesome. I was
that's
like, but now I need Ryan Miller to sign it.
I agree.
But I didn't have meet and greet with Ryan Miller. I didn't win that lotto,
He's
right?
in your basement. Just go holler at him real quick.
I was able to get his autograph on my Tinkerbell playmat.
Oh,
that I
did we
can-
ruin the...
So that now I can.
the end
He
of
is
the good
not
story?
living in my basement. I don't
man.
have a basement.
Sorry, we should have let you tell
He
the full
is just
story.
an absolutely wonderful human being.
He is.
Who spent extra time to just be able to sign autographs.
That's awesome.
So
That's
really
a
cool.
nice
he was
story.
definitely done for the day. This was like late Sunday. He was done for the day, but he stayed around. He ended up playing like a pack rush against somebody. A little crowd sort of formed. I will say like I'm not going to go into all the details, right? But I was able to meet all the artists, which was fantastic. Which I truly enjoy being able to do, right? That's one of the things that I really like. And so just being able to like meet and, sort of touch base with them was really fun, especially because at the time, like the World Series was going on, the Dodgers were doing really well. It was the day after the Grand Slam, like people were excited. So like all the artists were, I had my Dodger gear on. So like they were talking to me about that. It was just, it's so nice to be able to talk to people about things that are just normal everyday things for people, right? I'm a baseball fan. They watch baseball. They pay attention to baseball, right? It was so fun to do that. But again, going back to the original reason why I was like, "Ooh, I got to tell this story," is because I got both of them signed on it. So now I think I'm going to retire the Tinkerbell playmat,
Aw.
which is such good timing because I love that Donald Duck like art,
Okay. That
makes
the
sense.
pirate art, and it gives me a good excuse to move to another playmat.
To push one.
Right, because we've
Yeah.
talked about the whole playmat issue, right? Like I've got the Stitch playmat, I've got like it doesn't really matter that much because you could really only play with one playmat.
But I have to collect them all.
But it's right. There's the collector aspect of
Yep.
things, but then it's like when you're collecting them, are you playing with them? So it's just a really great experience for me to be like, okay, this is a good reason to retire that playmat and to play with another. But if nobody's going to Lorcanaganza, I'm a little nervous now that I'm not going to be able to get it.
I think I pre-ordered because I'm not yucking anyone's yum. Could not care less about Donald, but I'm super hyped about Elsa, which is totally okay. It shows that like we have our own things. You give me an Elsa playmat, much less like one of the arts that I really love. I love that.
Is that the Fifth Spirit one?
I think it's Fifth Spirit.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I called a Ruby card recently, and then I was like, oh wait, sorry, my bad. Just kidding, everyone. But I was flipping through one of our friends' decks on Monday, and I was like, oh yeah, she's definitely not a Ruby card. And he was like, okay. But yeah,
You've been out of the game too long.
I mean, all that partying in New Orleans, my brain cells, the last brain cell just
Oh, took
right
the trip out.
right out. Yeah. But no, yeah. So I don't even know if I mean, maybe. I think a Trove would be cool. I don't have a Trove pre-ordered anywhere. I don't have any sealed pre-ordered
I
anywhere.
actually don't worry about troves anymore. It's for whatever reason, it really is only the playmats that I, because they were more available for this last set.
Yeah, the pre-orders went up at big box retail
Yeah.
like super early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I ended up getting the Bell playmat.
And I have
Oh
seen
no, I
them-
even mean the Seas one went up
The
super early.
Seas one.
Yeah, but that's
I
how
I must have
didn't-
missed that
Yeah,
because
I
I
missed
didn't.
that completely. But
We have a whole channel
troves-
for it.
troves specifically, and this isn't like financial advice for everybody. And I totally understand like if you want to get it like right away, because I mean, opening product is really cool. It's really sweet. Plus troves
But pack
come
rush if you're
with
gonna open
packs,
it.
and you can pack rush. I was just about to get to that.
my pulls are always really good out of Troves versus not Troves.
But didn't we just see a pretty good price drop on Amazon for Seas troves? They went down to like 35. I want to say they went down to 35.
I'm sure. I'm
So
not looking at
troves,
them right
they
now.
have fixed the availability issue.
Yeah, you can get them at big box.
Good
retail.
on you, Ravensburger. Absolutely loving that.
I mean, looping back to going to Downtown Disney and like trying to get the products early, right? Repeating Lorcanaganza. It seems like the sentiment of like how everything was kind of handled last time.
Oh, you mean you don't want to be trampled by a horde of people trying to collect D23 promo boxes? I'm
Like
sorry,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like that kind of soured the experience a little bit for everybody, and like also maybe without the hype of D23 product kind of like being there, also all the people that were there because of D23, like it feels like I don't know if the plans are just they haven't ramped up yet because it's not week of, or if it's just like people that aren't as interested, or maybe just product is more available, so we don't feel the need to really try to secure the early bird thing.
It's a
anymore.
huge combination of all that, right?
Yeah.
Because I was out for Lorcanaganza last time. I was like, yeah, no, I don't really need it. It's not that big a deal. But then they did the D23 thing, and it was like, okay, great. We've got to get in line for this. And I think it was really the line experience or inexperience of the line where they just wouldn't let people line up.
Yeah.
That really caused, because in other Lorcanaganza experiences, we were able to just line up. It was like,
right,
here's
but
the line.
other Lorcanaganza experiences, people were showing up at 5 a.m. and not midnight.
Right, because people weren't.
And
So-
I understand, and gosh, perish the thought of me defending the way that this experience went. But like heavy equipment on site, the mouse doesn't let people hang around on, off hours anyway. Like I understand the way why it went the way that it did.
Absolutely no judgment.
It was not the most organized or pleasant when they finally let people start to queue. I don't enjoy being yelled at by grown men generally. But like if it just seemed, yes, it is a combination of all of the things. And part of it, the biggest driving factor was I think everybody looked at each other after the last one and was like, I have no desire to do this again. Like this is
Yeah, we're pushing 40. There's not a reason. It's like-
truly, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend an extra $40 to buy this online. I'm going to protect my peace. But that's such a privileged way to approach it. But I think that the consensus generally very early on was I'm not going to do this. And then when they put the playmats, which are like the big driving thing that people even care about for Downtown Disney, for a lot of us, right? Because we were having a hard time getting like LGSs to get an adequate amount of the mats.
yeah.
There's a different game. I'll call it what it is. SWU had the same issue, right? Where GameGenic was sending to our stores 1, maybe 2 copies of each mat. And it was like, these are hot items. The art looks fantastic. SWU stuff looks so cool. But then in this last drop, there were like 8 or 9 or 10 copies of each playmat in the thing. So, I mean, fingers crossed, like, production is ramping up across the board. If Big Box Retail was able to post a pre-order for like Honey Wizard accessories. Honey Wizard is like iconic. It's the equivalent of having Brave Little Tailor stuff, and Brave Little Tailor stuff is going to sell out in a heartbeat, I'm sure. But they had all of that up like when Azurite was announced within a few days.
So I think that I feel like that's just a planning thing they've kind of got their sea legs under them now.
Oh, look at you.
They've got a couple sets going, and they've realized what demand is. They've realized they've kind of maybe sorted out their production, the cadence, all that kind of stuff, right?
Year 2 stuff as opposed to year 1 stuff, right? New contracts,
like,
maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, so they're probably just more aware of like what stores need, what stores want, what the timeline is, the turnaround times on everything, and so they're able to say, okay, instead of 1 to 2 playmats at every store, this was so much more popular. 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
Yep.
And so because of that, I would like to say that Lorcanaganza was because everybody loved everybody and wanted to just hang out with everybody a lot more and have sleepovers and hang out, in wee hours of the night in their cars together. But really,
it was a nice bonding experience.
In a way, it was, right. Like
Truly,
the last one was a bit souring just because of sort of the importance that everybody placed on making sure that they got the thing, right? And then the fact that they ended up having a ton of it that like was overwhelmingly available. We just ended up putting way too much like energy into something that didn't need to be done, and it took away from everything else, right? It took away from the idea of Lorcanaganza. We go, we buy some product, we get to open product, but we also could do it in the park, right? Like, and we have a Disneyland day together and stuff, that which just kind of didn't really end up happening, because when you're showing up so much earlier, it's like, I gotta go home and sleep. Like, I'm tired,
Yeah. Well, and everybody, I mean, that last one was just an outlier in general because people
100%.
were going to go to D23 and stuff like that. But like the Lorcanaganza was the friends we made along the way. We got to hang out with folks that we hadn't hung out with at previous Lorcanaganzas. And I really love and value that. So yeah, like the queue thing was a little sour in the beginning. I don't think that necessarily defined the experience.
No.
But at the end of the day, I have everybody's Discord and or phone numbers, and if I want to hang out with someone and have sleepover, I can do that at a sensible, mature adult hour, as opposed to, like 3 a.m. in a parking lot where someone's yelling at me to go away. For good reasons, I should go away. So,
fast forward to next Thursday when this episode actually airs, and I've now edited in a clip of Brit
of my mugshot
kidnapping everybody at the last minute on Thursday, being like, get in the car, we're going to Disney. I know what I said, but
that does remind me I do have to put a PTO request in. Just a hedge on the off chance.
No, I mean, going back a little bit,
we haven't talked about DLC Seattle at all. What
rewinding
happened at
a little
DLC
bit.
Seattle? Oh,
Yeah,
wait, no.
you were pretty
did
excited.
some Pack Rush, and then we talked about
Yeah,
playmats.
I did Pack Rush. That was fun. There was a match, specifically speaking. I didn't actually tell you this, where in my opener after the mulligan, I had I was on the draw. I had foil Clarabelle 1, and I top decked for my first draw foil Clarabelle Legendary. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to shift this on turn 5 and go to town, right?
Let's go.
I stalled on ink. It was so bad. It was like 3 turns of drawing an uninkable with the shift in my hand. I was like, if I could just draw 3 cards off of this by inking something. But she was the only inkable, and I was like, you know what? It's Pack Rush. Like, I'm playing for 1 ticket here. There's no way I'm not gonna try and pass up the opportunity.
Oh, this was in Pack Rush.
It was in Pack Rush, yeah.
And you had the shift?
I had foil on foil shift. It just didn't work out on turn 3.
But those are the thrills you live for.
Look, the packs were like, hey buddy, you got a foil Clarabelle. Like, quit your complaining, But it just would have been so great to, get that shift. And then my opponent, of course, enjoyed it afterwards. He's like, this is so cool. But like by the time I was able to, he had 1 card in hand, So
I feel like those moments, along with the moments where you have to actually read cards that you don't see in constructed play, and you're like, that does what again?
Can you turn that around? Can you play that upside down?
I feel like those moments are what makes Pack Rush so fun. Where you see the foil, like you see the foil that you got for that pack, or you ripped the Enchanted, or like, I'm able to, like, for the first time ever, shift this card that has never been shifted before. Right? Like
Ratigan shift.
like those moments, it's thrilling when you play Pack Rush to do stuff like that.
I am so thankful that Pack Rush came out, right? Like we'll talk about it more later, but like it changed Lorcana for me in a very positive way. So Seattle then ended up being overall was a great experience. The guys I was rooming with, fantastic. Our community showed up again, right? Like it's so much fun to go and then realize like how many of us were there. It was awesome. And of course this time it was like other faces too. It wasn't all the same faces. So that was really fun experience. My competitive day did not go very well. I got sick a few rounds in, which was not the most fun. Oof. But I was able to struggle through and go through, and the level of competition was really good. I'm not, no names or anything, but my 8th round opponent, and I did not do well. I don't remember what my record was. It was not a winning record. My 8th round opponent like had top 32'd in Dallas.
Wow.
He was not doing very well either, right?
Yeah.
So overall, it was still a great experience, but it also goes to show the variance of you could do really well, but you could also just.
I mean, any given weekend, right?
Yeah,
like that's
truly, yeah. Because we had friends who did like super super well at the Core Constructed, like the pre-event, and then folks who said that they didn't have the same run that they had at like Vegas or Chicago or.
It was interesting.
It's a new event every time.
But that was kind of what I found interesting was that Vegas, even though from Vegas to Seattle, there wasn't a new set or any kind of big meta shift or anything like that. You could have people have like a great weekend on one and then turn around and just like, hey, and not have a not so great weekend, right? From a playing perspective. And like I think that's a testament to kind of the health of the game. Right? Because like you could be playing the exact same 60 cards or whatever. You could be playing the exact same deck in the exact same thing 1 month later, and you just run into the wrong opponents, or you don't draw as well, or whatever, and you don't have the same results. It's either you were great one day and not so great the other day, or vice versa. Like anything could happen. So
right, and to that point, and maybe even to like push it back in like a counterpoint to a small degree, we saw, for there not being like a big meta change between the two events, we walked into Vegas not expecting Green Steel, much less Green Steel to be like top 1 and 2. I thought it was going to be Steel Song a lot more than it was. Green Steel was a little surprising, but it was like the lack of Ruby Amethyst that was like notable in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked at the top 8 decks on Seattle, and there was like a really healthy representation. And to speak to that, we've spoken to that in the past, which is Ruby Amethyst takes a while to start figuring out what they're teching into and what they're controlling really hard. And then when they do, it turns into like a really dominant deck. And I think that maybe what could account for it is that the kinds of games that were being played in Vegas by our friend group more closely represented our like microclimate of our locals versus Seattle looking maybe different than what we were seeing in like our own locals.
That's a good assessment.
To a degree.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of you talking about the meta as a whole too, right? Because going into Seattle or going into Las Vegas, we expected the Ruby Sapphire and the Steel Song, right? Like we knew that those were going to be the
people
things.
Practiced into them.
Going into Seattle, right? You thought that like Steel Song was just not going to show up, right? Like it did
Steel
not
Song
have
was deck 2,
did
right?
not have a great. As far as a percentage, it was I think 15%.
Oh, I meant
of day one
of top 8.
Yeah,
top 4.
I'm top 8 is not really indicative of the meta.
Truly,
right?
yeah.
It's just those are the guys that did well, and so going into Seattle, we do our predictions, and I had predicted that Emerald Steel would be 15 to 25%. It ended up being 18. Ruby Sapphire would be 15 to 25%. It ended up being 21%. Emerald Amethyst, 10 to 20%. It ended up being under 5%. It was part
Emerald
of
Amethyst?
Emerald Amethyst was part of the overall rest of the deck's 5%.
That's so
Because
A lot of people
atypically represented.
A lot
in
of people
top eight.
were actually really surprised about that. And then Ruby Amethyst, I had
It's
it
a good deck.
10 to 20%. It ended up being 16%. So
Ruby Amethyst?
Ruby Amethyst.
Ruby Amethyst went up.
Yeah,
and blue steel numbers.
2
Didn't
in
put
the
it up.
whole event. It's so weird.
I did not make a prediction on that because I didn't expect a ton to be there.
We expected you to make the prediction.
I nailed that one. The one that I was just completely off because I didn't even equate that Steel Song would show up in force, it being 15%, when I thought it would be part of the other to a degree, right? It could have been like an 7%, but it wasn't one of those things that I was expecting to be a 15% deck, especially after sort of seeing it being pushed out in Vegas.
So, I mean, I think that that's interesting. Also to think about in the sense that I've been kind of like looking at it. I've been kind of using our local scene because I felt like our local scene is pretty wide with the number of stores around here and like pretty healthy in that sense to kind of be like, oh, like what would the greater meta kind of look like? But the set champs that I attended on Seattle weekend was crawling with Emerald Amethyst.
I was gonna
right?
say, yeah.
And but like it just didn't really convert or show up that well to.
I think that that's a good example of how like your local meta skews your overall view,
Exactly,
right? Because
right.
we all expected a lot more Emerald Amethyst, and it just didn't show up.
I was the one who was advocating for Gerpel. I was like, I don't think Gerpel's going to be 1 million people at DLC, but I would like it to do well, and I could see why it would do well, even though I see what its limitations are. Like in our locals, a lot of folks are playing.
Yeah, a lot of
Amethyst
people.
Emerald.
Yeah, a lot of people are on it. It's a great deck. It's super fun. I like playing. I like playing against it. Like not because like I have a good win record or anything, but like I think it's very interactive. A lot of lines to think about. Fun to play against. The pilots obviously enjoy playing it. That's why there's so many of it.
Yeah, I had a great
running
time
around.
when I ran it in Inklands. I just couldn't get it to convert into like match wins.
Yeah.
And I also had a meltdown because of anxiety. But it was fun, and it was like the most fun where like you sit there with Ruby Amethyst sometimes and you're playing like a really technical, like thoughtful game. I was like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing here." And this is like bouncy and yeah, so I understand why everybody's playing it. It's fun. It's a fun deck to play.
Yeah, but I mean, back to Blake's point, right? It's just like I kind of get those blinders when it's like, oh, like, well, what do we think the meta is going to be at a big DLC? And I'm like, oh, what do we see at our locals? And like that may not necessarily be the case from a large scale perspective because we're taking in all these other areas, and so. This was like a pretty prime example of when I was like kind of feeling out and thinking, hey, what's our local Steel Song players dropped off of Steel Song, right? Or our local RP players are on Emerald Amethyst or whatever, and then like that wasn't quite the reflection of what Seattle did.
Right, and then the Ruby Amethyst players kind of like stick together. I say that I barnacle on to our very talented Ruby Amethyst other player who kindly helps coach me through deck building advice. But yeah, it turns out, and so then it turns into, well, are you getting practice with Ruby Amethyst that's representative of how everybody's playing it? Or are the 3 Ruby Amethyst players in your meta cribbing off of each other's homework and like playing the hyper local version of Ruby Amethyst?
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that I would like to talk about more in depth in a future episode of just like, hey, like just practicing. If I practice against you in a like ad nauseum, and I'm like, hey, I've played against Brit 1 million times. I totally know how this Ruby Amethyst goes.
You mean before DFW?
Well, no, just in general, like
Yeah.
right, like a general scenario. I could feel super comfortable about playing my deck into your deck, but the trap that you might be falling into there is that, hey, I might just know how to play into how Brit plays.
Yep.
Like Brit is a conservative player or a more risky player, and that's why she does X and Y, but it may not prepare you necessarily for like a more broad scale Ruby Amethyst player or you know, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so like we may want to go with that, you know, practice tips or whatever, like just, hey, broaden your horizons, like practice against multiple people on the same deck or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and we had that. I saw that a little bit firsthand when we had a couple of friends who were on Red Blue at the same time, and at the time, whatever this point was in the meta, I don't remember what it was specifically. The consensus was that Ruby Amethyst had a hard time against the Blue Red match, and I would sit down and play Blue Red all day, every day if you let me. Like I had my stuff figured out, and I had pretty good win rates against that deck. And so when everybody was like, "This is a hard matchup for your deck," I was like, "I haven't had that." But I'm also playing, like, in our meta, we don't have 50 Blue Red players. We have very good players, but there's like 3 people who are on the
Right.
deck with, you know, a lot of regularity.
Yeah.
So I can see how I can see the opposite side of that too.
Yeah, it tends to be more of a silo, right? Like you and I play Ruby Amethyst, but we play Ruby Amethyst differently.
We do.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just and Matt plays Ruby Amethyst as well,
Matt wants to play
But-
Ruby Amethyst.
but he plays it differently as
And
well.
then I go,
you
I
know?
need somebody to play green steel. Here's your deck. And he's like, thanks, honey.
baked in training partner.
Well, and then, you know, and then he had that issue where he was like, I wanted to play Ruby Amethyst and set championship. And every time I sat down and played, I had to fight for every win I got. And all of my matches went to, and I was like, yeah, Ruby Amethyst.
It's pretty much why I will
Sounds-
only ever play like one. If I sign up for 3 or 4 set championships, I will only play one with Ruby Amethyst. I don't want to play that more than once. I think it's also the same reason why I defaulted to not play it at either DLC that I've gone to.
What were you on for Seattle?
I ended up playing the same Ruby Sapphire.
Oh, okay.
Just because, again, I didn't, and this is another episode we need to talk about at some point in time. Preparation.
Yeah.
I had 0 preparation. As a matter of fact, I got on the plane to Seattle with my cards, not a deck.
I mean,
That's chaotic.
but
And I'm a Sagittarius. That's chaotic for a fire sign.
So yeah, at 11 p.m. on Friday, after doing a bunch of pack rush, because you know I could have sat there at the event and figured out my deck instead. Nope, decided pack rush was what I wanted to do.
You have to
11
submit deck lists in advance, Blake.
Yeah, 30 minutes before the tournament begins.
Oh my gosh.
As long
You're
as I
right.
got 60 cards, right? So it was 11 p.m., which of course was not the best time to be doing that. You know, we woke up at
I was going to say
3:30 in the morning
Yeah,
to catch
exactly.
our flight at 5 a.m. Right?
Yeah, landing at like 9 in the morning.
Yeah, it was not a beneficial thing, but I had a good time, and that's what I tried to focus on. And I understand that like my failures as, you know, going through the tournament and not doing as well as I wanted to, just 100% comes down to the fact that like I did not prepare. I did not put any effort into preparing for a competitive tournament, right? I played multiple different decks during the set championships that we had leading up to it. If you want to do well, you got to practice, right? And you really got to focus. I didn't do that, and that's fine. Because I still ended up having a good time. And
good.
I'm okay with that. And I also understand that like my failure of not doing well it's 100% on me, right? Like I did that. So it's okay.
No, yeah. And I mean, like, honestly, you know, a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to do well at DLCs or to do well in general. But
What? Who are those people?
But-
So weird. You should have more chill.
just remember that you play the game to have fun. And,
Yeah. Oh,
right.
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
and ultimately enjoy playing Lorcana. Like that's it sounds like a weird thing to say, but like if you're not enjoying it, like maybe step back and just like reassess for a minute.
Or
You know.
find something that does, right? Like
Right.
I got reinvigorated with Pack Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it was like it's the same few decks, the same this and that, right? It wasn't the overall fulfilling experience, being that the card pool is still pretty limited and it just kind of broke down into the same meta over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm reinvigorated by set 6 spoilers. Let's go, baby.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, I didn't mean to actually derail, but yeah, we could do that. if we
No,
wanted
I
to.
mean, it's we planned on doing it.
Unless you have any other cool stories to tell about Seattle.
I mean, there are some really great stories, but
You're going to have to sign up for our Patreon to hear these exclusive stories. We don't have a Patreon yet, but that's where they would be if we had more time.
you know what I do? There's one other thing that I will talk about very briefly. The food in Seattle, fantastic.
Yes.
Amazing.
5 stars out of 5 stars. Did not have a bad experience. I mean, you know, we had great company, so that helped. But I mean, it just everything. We had pizza. We had hamburgers, right? We
Okay.
had
We'll have Blake's Yelp reviews linked
Yeah.
below so that you can, if you're ever traveling to Seattle, you can hit the same spots that Blake hit.
This wasn't part of DLC, but I also snacked my way across New Orleans, and it was
I really
I
need
hit
to
the wrong
know,
thing.
just because it's
Amazing.
what I would do.
what?
How many beignets?
Me? 1 on the record. And then I put one in my bag to eat later. Hold on. I put one in my bag to eat later, and then it got smushed. And I was like, well, this is a sad beignet. I'm not going to eat this one. But it was a Café du Monde beignet.
Yeah,
I would have
see,
been
I-
smushed, but
me,
Listen.
me as well.
no
I
standards.
had-
I have no.
And when I say, oh, I had one, like the following word would have been, I had a bag. I had a bag of beignets. I had one bag of beignets.
Well, she did say I had one on record, so I don't really know what on record means.
You're not wrong.
Technically, okay, actually, I probably should have said 2 on the record, but I only ate 1 in practicality. And I'm going to go sacrilege here. Please, New Orleans, have me back. I had such a nice time. Please do not kick me out or ban me for saying this. I did not like that beignet as much as I liked a Mickey beignet. I'm sorry. I know. I liked it. I liked it.
This is a perfect example of the hometown meta, right?
This is- yeah.
This is it
Interesting.
is exactly what it is. Because see, we went for our honeymoon.
To New Orleans?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I will go there for beignets any day. It's not the same, not even close to the same. And we've tried, we've cheated, right? Like Vegas, they've got that beignet spot.
No, yeah. I mean, but it's like it was a denser beignet. I like a lighter, fluffier beignet.
So
It was great.
So I have this take, a similar take,
Mm-hmm.
but it is with the Disneyland churro. So
Are you saying you like the California cart outside churro?
No,
Never
no,
mind.
no.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go.
So the Disneyland
This,
churro.
this,
Disneyland Park churro to me.
This might end up being a 2-person podcast, depending on what he says.
The Disneyland Park churro to me is the perfect churro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're
I-
you're still in the podcast.
I don't know.
I'm still.
Yeah.
I don't know what an authentic churro is. I don't know. You know, like I'm unaware of what an ideal authentic churro is.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that any churro that I have is measured against the Disneyland churro.
1,000%.
And
Am
don't-
I a feral little goblin who will order a drive-through churro? Yes. Do I know that this is not the best churro experience? Also, yes. Everything is measured against the Disneyland churro.
Right. And so there's something about like how crispy it is, how soft it is, like of the
The
combination
warmth,
of
the crunchy, the
like,
everything.
Exactly. Everything that is like my ideal churro. And so like we'll go out and we might go to like, you know, a Mexican restaurant or like, in Santa Ana, there's like the churro carts or whatever. And then I'll try it because I love churros. I'll try it and I'll just be like, oh, this, like people will be like, this is the most authentic, like this is the best one you can get. And I'll get it and I'll just be like,
This ain't it.
it's good, but this is not Disneyland churro. And
So I'm like, all right, give me a Mickey beignet that tastes like Dimetap. I'm like, I'm down.
I'm
Let's go.
generally like curious if anybody out there has a differing opinion, because I've only heard the same thing
About
that
Disneyland churros?
Disneyland churro, for whatever reason, they have it perfected. Now, I can say, because this actually happened this last weekend specifically, we went to Disneyland. And I got one after fireworks, and you could tell they were like ready to go. It was a little bit on the colder side because they had already
Right.
prepped a bunch of them, and I got one of those. but still delicious, right? And I have a hard time because it's true. I love a lot of the snacks in Disneyland, right? I am a huge cotton candy fan. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
And you can put tahini on it from the Dole Whip place.
So, but
It's game changing.
But the thing is, like, the churro is still it's at the top of the list. If I'm going through the cycle of like, am I gonna get ice cream? Am I gonna get cotton candy? Am I gonna get, we're gonna go get a tiger tail, tigger tail, whatever it ends up being. It's like it's a churro. If I'm gonna be here, and if I get separated from my wife, I'll find a churro cart.
I've never left the park with less than 3 churros consumed on the day.
I feel good about this. This is going to validate my future practices. Yeah.
At one point,
What's your churro record, Mike?
no, I don't know what the count is, but there was one day where I was like, I'm not really gonna eat anything, but every churro cart we pass, I'm buying a churro. Like, so if like whatever course, like somebody else will dictate what we do with the day, but if I pass the cart, I'm gonna buy a churro.
And you didn't keep count?
I didn't keep count that day. I just
It's like $500 in churros later. You're like,
a lot of churros.
there's a lot of churros.
And it was just like, oh, look, there's a cart. I'll be right. I'll catch up.
Was it even the flavored churros that they're doing now for like special?
I don't like the flavored churros.
I like some of the flavored churros,
Okay.
but yeah, no, the old standby is, and maybe anybody whose home park is Disney World can refute this, but I've heard on the internet, which is generally a very solid source of information.
They can't lie to you on the internet.
No, that's what I've heard. I've heard
Yeah.
everything you read online is true.
Like,
So
this is on the internet, so everything that I say is true.
Oh, I perished the thought. But I have heard that there is a critical difference between Disneyland and Disney World churros, and it has to do with the way that they do food at Disney World versus Disneyland, where Disneyland is like much more immediate, and they have to move churros from like back of house at Disney World because everything at Disney World is more spread out. But
Ooh,
I
interesting.
would, if you have been to both Disneyland and Disney World and you have strong feelings about churros, both in general and at those two locations, I would like to hear. If,
We would love to hear.
yeah.
'Cause,
This is a podcast about a child's card game, but I really...
'Cause
I
eventually
wanna
It's
hear-
about to be a churro review
It's about to be a
podcast.
churro review podcast.
Well, and eventually we're gonna have to do a Lorcanaganza at Disney World, right?
Truly, yeah.
Like it's just gonna happen, and then
Yeah.
the Lorcanaganza out on Disney Cruise.
Ooh.
How sweet would that be?
Yeah.
We can only do this with your help and your sponsorship. So
Our
please
Patreon.
pay for our non-existent Patreon for Blake's exclusive Seattle stories. And
So, this was a very long voyage to get to set 6 spoilers
Yeah.
a voyage across the Azurite Seas.
on a cruise ship. Yeah. So, what were you guys looking at in the spoilers? Like, what are the things that make you like hyphy for the next set?
So, my first observation: there is no Hey Hey Enchanted. So that is a sticking point. And considering our recent conversation, I don't understand why there isn't a churro item in the game yet. So special requests, we still need a Hey Hey Enchanted, and I would like a churro item.
I would like them to. There's food
I'm gonna
in.
get the popsicles altered.
Oh, there we
It's
go.
Disney snacks.
Disney snacks. I like.
If you alter Lorcana cards, reach out.
I've got a Posca and a Dream. I can help.
Okay.
It'll be great.
The 4 that I saw that I'm like, okay, these are build around cards, or these are cards that could have some like significant impact on the game. Was Oswald,
Okay.
Oswald's on my list.
Tiana,
Tiana in what color?
the legendary Tiana, Amber.
What does she do?
She's the one that when she's exerted, if your opponent is trying to challenge a character, they lose 3 power on their character.
Oh,
unless
that's
they
right.
pay.
I did see that
So
one.
it's a tax card.
Yep.
I don't know if it'll have any real impact, but it could have an impact,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you're talking about Madam Mim Fox,
Yeah.
right? Where they're trying to play her on that turn, and it's like, okay, that's what they're doing with their ink. Well, now Madam and Fox is a 1/3.
On that subject, I don't really play I don't play any Amber, so I wasn't like super picking out Amber cards, but the Simba for the same reason.
Okay.
The Simba Legendary does, at the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready your other characters. He's a 4/4.
Yeah.
He's 5 uninkable. He quests for 2. Like, you'll get good stuff out of it.
Well,
but,
if you have 2.
and you're also keeping things right. And you're keeping things untapped. So
Yeah.
Mim Foxes.
And there are other build around cards, right? Safe and Sound as a rare comes up. I don't specifically remember what ink that was, but it says that a chosen character of yours can't be challenged until your next turn.
Oh yeah, I do
So-
have that on my list.
So there are like
That's,
little niche build around cards that are fun. I also put Baymax on.
Okay.
The legendary Baymax, like it looks fun. Whether it has an impact or not,
Sure.
I don't really know. But
Legendary
it looks fun.
Baymax is on my list too.
And
Oswald's on my
then
list.
Maui Shark, and that's not
Yeah.
just because I'm a huge stan of the Moana franchise, which
Mhm.
I will be going to see
Opening night.
multiple times. It's that card looks fun. It looks good, right? Like the only thing that makes it feel weird is that it doesn't have rush because the other Maui does, but it's a playable, like it's a buildable card. So I feel like for those 4 legendaries, those are the ones that intrigue me the most. I haven't truly done a real deep dive. Again, I've been busy and sick, and I don't pay attention too much to spoilers, right? I like opening the packs. And I think given my recent love for Pack Rush, it's only going to be more fun if I don't know what every card does, because now every card is a surprise. And I like that. For the super rares, I have the Lilo. I think the Lilo is probably the all-star. It's definitely the Daisy of this set. So the Daisy Duck that is the...
Yeah, that little 2-cost Lilo.
that just keeps coming back and questing. So, or your opponent has to spend some form of resource, whether that's their own character not questing or singing a song or something. And for 2 ink, it just keeps coming back. Worst case scenario, you ink it.
But it's the
its
start of
own
your
at some
turn,
point.
and then you have to.
It's 2 ink.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. I think
but it still has to dry to be able to go questing again, to be killed and then
sure,
sent back to discard.
but again, it requires your opponent to constantly answer it every turn.
She enters play exerted.
But they still have to spend a resource, right? They still have to choose to challenge her
Or let
instead
you
of
quest for 2.
singing, friends, or instead of questing themselves.
True.
They're constantly, and that's every turn. So if we're talking, you're in turn 6 and you've been able to ink every turn, you're now playing potentially 2 or 3 things, and one of them's consistent. You have 2 Lilos in, now you've got 2 consistent Lilos coming out. That have to be answered to a certain degree. So I find that she's probably the card most people are really going to want to build around. I also really like the Ruby Minnie Mouse for its effect of anytime you ink during your turn, you may bring a location back from your discard. So now you just have infinite Queen's Castles, right? Like,
Yep. My
this
favorite
is-
kind of Queen Castle.
yeah, and it's just the cost
away.
is ink.
Cusco.
Sure. There's also library.
Hater.
You're not going to play 4 hideaways and 4 Cuscos.
I'll play 4 Cuscos.
I don't think so.
I didn't play a single one this season.
Yeah.
I'm not playing more.
I was like, I'll
You
call
know-
that bluff.
You know what I'm going to do with it, though? I'm going to wreck them. Wreck-It Ralph?
Wreck-It Ralph, the steel.
The steel one. Like, as a blue steel
He
player,
could be
that
interesting.
one is fun.
Not
I
on my list,
know.
but I definitely looked at. Again, I tried
It's
to
on
keep
my
my
list.
list like small, right? I wasn't just trying to look at like every card specifically. I wanted to choose specific. There's a Daisy Duck. I want to say Amber Daisy Duck. If not, it's Emerald Daisy Duck. I don't remember what she does. I just remember looking at it and thinking this card is interesting as well. Britt's
Yeah.
looking it up right now. So while
Oh, I
she's
have my
looking it up-
list. No, I'm looking
okay.
to see if it was on my list.
Oh.
That's all I have.
Then so I'll send you a link.
Well,
so that you can-
I'll find it. I'll find an interesting Daisy Duck. whether it is the one that Blake was talking about.
Anybody's guess. It's like a first chapter Daisy Duck. It comes up on the screen.
It's just going to be the set 5 Daisy Duck. Blake just saw this again.
Blake
and
just.
It's the super rare Daisy Duck from set 6. So we'll
Nice.
just put that out there.
We'll
and then,
almost
triangulate
at
that
set
one.
5. It was just about to
That
be
close.
and then the Tadashi.
Looks
I think Tadashi
great.
is really fun. So for my rares, I put Safe and Sound, which we talked about. You Came Back is another one of those little niche, like sort of build around cards where I think you just get to unexert a character, which is really interesting about this one because most of that sort of key mechanic is always you can unexert, but it doesn't get to quest again. This one just says unexert.
Yep.
It does not say you don't get to quest again. So Mufasa, here we come. You know what I mean? Like,
It just means
just how
Jafar
crazy
gets
would
to
that
cast Wheel twice.
I was gonna say
in the same turn. Yeah.
Or Jafar gets to sing Wheel twice. Jafar gets to sing A Whole New World twice. There we go. Get everything correct.
Yeah.
Jasmine, take the
carpet. Yep. And then the other one that I liked, which kind of goes back to the super rare Minnie Mouse, Pooh's Pirate Ship.
Yeah.
I really like what they're doing with the system of being able to bring back cards from your banish pile.
Yeah.
Right. It's a
Starting
mechanic, and it could be too slow. Right. Like that just could be a thing, but it's at least nice to have.
But
the
opening
ability.
opening that design space a little
Absolutely.
bit, and just like start experimenting, see if it's too slow, too fast, like what's going on, and then just kind of exploring some new avenues, right? Like,
yeah.
so for me, I only really I'm bad at deck building, so as a net decker, the only 2 cards that really stood out to me was the blue ramp spell, the Sail the Azurite Sea, right?
Of course, it's going to be in Sapphire.
Yeah.
The Sapphire. It seems like, it replaces itself. It ramps. It seems like the only difference from one jump is that it's not singable. So, is that really a big enough deal? Are the other benefits, do they outweigh it? Right? Like, will that gain a slot in Blue's deal? I'm thinking yes.
I think specifically with the amount of Emerald and the overall sort of shift away from one jump, I think it's absolutely replacement for
Right.
one jump, right?
And then the other card that really stood out to me was Wreck-It Ralph. I briefed on it real quick, but in steel, being able to ramp it out quickly in blue steel.
He's great.
Right? And then he's a big body and
Quest
is
for
either
3.
utility, removing opponents' things and still getting lore benefit off of that. Awesome. Or just getting lore benefit and removing your own things. Right? Oh, there's not a viable target over there. Get some extra lore by removing my churro.
Very interesting.
Sure.
I think the current intervention for Michael that I'm thinking of is that at some point in time, I will come over and confiscate all of his Sapphire and Steel cards.
I'll make a Ruby Amethyst player out of you.
It doesn't even have to be Ruby Amethyst, but I mean,
And now I will rapid fire through my list of 30 cards that I have on my list in comparison to your 4.
30. All right, let's do it.
Let's go. Number 1, Leela's on my list. But more importantly, I will be very surprised if we do not see David and Nani bodyguard interaction, because that seems like a no-brainer. Quests for 3 when there's a Nani on the board. Nice. Kanga with the little, when this character quests another character can't be challenged, a little mommy kangaroo action. Beautiful. We love to see it. Dale, you can put the 3 cards of your deck into your discard to give a chosen character. Yeah, they're not in my hand. Take it off my deck. Let's beef it up. Let's swing into things. But I don't play Amber, so I don't know why I'm getting excited. Simba, that legendary Simba, I'm excited for that one. I might play Amber, but just that one. In Amethyst, I am so excited for all of the questing aggro in both Amethyst and Emerald. Maybe I just go full aggro, and that's just fun, and it's just full glass cannon, and I can't do anything but be a menace, maybe. I don't know. I like the new Madam Mim, the Challenger Mim, and the Lore Mim. I already did the math on it, and I was like, Mim it's not tap Mim and tap 2 for 1 lore. It's tap 2 and get 1 lore. And I was like, I think I use less ink this way than if I have to find a goat and keep bouncing that sucker. Fewer cards. I was like, I think Mim is the girl. She's only 2/3, so I better make it count because... Oh, and I don't even think she needs to be dried. I think she hits the board. Yeah, exactly. She hits the board. Let's go.
It doesn't require...
I've got this. Magic Carpet, quest for 3. Let's go. White Rose, that's on my list. I don't know why. Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell's just like a mini surfer. She's in the sky instead of on the waves. That makes sense. Okay, never mind. Yzma's on my list. Sisu's a new shift target, but it's a shift target. That Challenger Sisu is a 5. And then what? You shift Big Sisu on 6. It's maybe not the biggest discount. Let's see. Oh, there's a Hades that I'm excited for. It's a 6 cost uninkable, so nobody's going to play it. But during your opponent's turn, whenever your other character is banished, gain 2 lore. Let's go.
It's purple?
Purple.
Yeah, it'll be played in blue. I mean, they already play 7 cost Hades.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Tinkerbell, Queen of the Azurite Fairies. She is cute. She's evasive. She quests for 2. Other fairy characters, like fairy tribal or whatever we're going to call it in this one. They don't call it even tribal in Magic anymore. What do they call it? Anyway, fairy family deck. Let's go. Fairy ship, yes. Maleficent staff, yes. Fred in Emerald, 1 cost. This is just going to be like card. 1 cost Fred. When he's challenged, you gain 2 lore. Mwah, chef's kiss. I love to see it. Let's go. Olivia Flaversham. I don't know why I couldn't read for a second there. She's a Flaversham that quests for 3. She only costs 2 uninkable. Hate it. It's fine. I'll play it. It'll be great. There's ward characters that quest for a whole bunch. Let's go. Heffalumps and Woozles is cool. You Came Back is one of the sketch cards that I like for the Enchanted. Bent My Will is a menace and should be banned immediately. I don't like it and it should go away. That's the one where each opponent discards all of their cards in their hand. And everybody has already said, if you get to have Be Prepared, that means we get to have Bent My Will. And to that, I say, no, ma'am and sir, because at least Be Prepared hits my deck too, or hits my board too. I don't know why this is becoming increasingly frantic and manic, but let's see what else is on here.
We're going to do this every time now.
Jasmine Rebellious Princess looks cool. Raya looks cool. We're in red. Scar looks cool. Hades looks cool. Maui the Shark looks cool. Thievery. Opponent loses a lore and I gain a lore. Let's go. I want that. There's a Flotilla that looks cool. I'm already got running too long. There's another Flaversham. 2 and uninkable. Quests for 3. There's little mice running around everywhere. Got to get some vermin control up in here. Oswald, yeah. Baymax, Enchanted, absolutely. Hero and Tadashi, let's go. Peekly is underrated. When you play this character, put chosen character of yours in your inkwell face down and exerted. In Blorple, not Plu. That'll be fun. Big Baymax looks cool. Big Tadashi looks cool. Prepare Your Bot looks cool. We Could Be Immortals looks cool. We Could Be Immortals Enchanted looks cool. Also, microbots. I'm just going to make a microbot and puppy deck. And it's going to be 200 cards. And nobody can tell me anything. I'm going to be a menace. Also, Justice for Gantu. He's a 5 cost 4/3 and quests for 4. The least utilized legendary in history has now become a kind of cool rare. Let's go. And then Wreck-It Ralph is also awesome. And this concludes my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Okay, so I'd like to note that nobody imposed a time limit on your discussion. You did not need to speak through that at all.
But it's definitely going to be a segment for future sets.
I feel like
the Brit quick set review in 1 minute.
Y'all said you had 3 cards, and then I got up to 8 just in Amber. I was like, uh-oh, I did not understand the assignment.
No, it's fine. I try and be picky about it because, like,
I feel like that should be a new segment, though.
Yeah, I feel like if you
right?
highlight
like,
everything,
it should just be like Brit's 5 hot takes and 5 cold takes, but she's got to do it in 15 seconds.
And she's taken double ADHD medication for the day. Let's go.
So to follow up on, because you made some good points about some stuff.
Generally,
and there were
two
specifically that, like, I kind of attached to.
Sure.
The first one being the new Madam Mim, right?
She's great.
The goat-ish replacement.
I love her.
It also frees up. So, you know, you were talking about the resource management aspect of, like, playing a goat, bouncing the goat, playing the goat, right? Like, concept-wise, it's absolutely like that is a really good understanding of that, right? The reason why I like that is because now you don't have a character that you have to bounce, so you can use your bounce cards on other impactful things as well.
Exactly.
Instead of just being like, I'm gonna gain 2 more lore, right? Like you can now do something far more impactful to the game.
And it's repeatable in the way that Gathering Wisdom and Knowledge isn't.
Yes. And then Sisu 5.
Yeah.
You had kind of made a comment of like, well, it's not that much of a discount, but it's not the fact that you paid 5 for it at all. It's the fact that Big Sisu comes down at 6. It doesn't really the cost for the setup is irrelevant as long as it was under 6.
Right. And like you can do other so Sisu hits and clears the board, and then Sisu is still a character that can challenge, quest, or sing. So having it hit as a shift instead of a hard cast has its own benefits. And even though it, like you love to see a discount, there's still advantages to having another good Sisu. And her on her own is fine. Like she's got a 6 body, great body. Challenger 2, so it swings into things for 4. Quest by itself for 2. Like there's not really a downside on that card necessarily, I think. But
again, it being at 5 is not a limiting factor for being able to shift.
Yeah, no, yeah. And it's inkable too. So at the end of the day, that's what we learned, right? Like 60 card is not hard and fast the way that it is in other games because your resource management is completely different when you don't have to draw into lands.
So the only thing that I would like to note and possibly close on that is that since saying that 60 cards is not hard and fast, I have not been performing well at set champs with a 61 card deck.
Oh no! And now
causation? Who knows?
It's the mental game. It's got you. You're psyched out. You're like, there's 61 cards in this thing.
Yeah, probably. It got to my head, and it's just not how I like to play. Not how the deck knows. The deck knows that I'm running scared.
Hand me your deck. I will take 1 card out. Wink, and then you'll be fine, and you'll be at 60 cards. Wink. No, actually, you have to write down your deck list so that you don't get a game loss. So
that's true. Just somebody else register my deck for me. That'll solve
what?
Blake's problem.
Do I have to do everything?
That'll solve Blake's problem of trying to convince me to play something. He'll just register not blue, not steel.
Truly. Hey, maybe that's how DLC is going to go for you next time.
I don't know. Maybe.
Anything else we wanted to touch on?
We were going to talk about something, but we're going to just have to talk about it in the next episode.
It'll be
and
fine.
Hopefully it won't be in a month.
Yeah, we were going to try and do a more in-depth dive on our love for Pack Rush.
That's right.
Now being tabled.
See, maybe I did have to rapid fire through 70 million cards.
I thought it was an absolutely. It
was fun.
As far as I'm
concerned,
concerned, yeah,
Thank you.
It is it will be a repeating segment.
Thank you. I do what I can.
All right. Well,
I still think the David and Nani thing is going to be, as somebody who does not play Steel Song at all. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up.
Looks like somebody's playing Amber.
I can't. Every time I play it, it's like I've never played this game before. I don't know why Amber
You just
tilts
gotta play it until it clicks.
That sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, I guess I do.
It's a competitive card game.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
All right. Same bat time, same bat channel.
We'll catch you next time. See you later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.